The background of the story is the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's actually a fairly personal movie for me because I was the age of the kids in the movie in 1962 on that fateful weekend that we literally thought there was going to be no school on Monday and no school ever again because the world was going to end. Well, you got to remember, growing up in the 1950s, this was the age of atomic fear. I mean, we all thought the bomb was going to drop. Every time a plane flew over in school, we would tense up, waiting for the whistle, thinking that they were going to drop the bomb on us. And so all of these movies, you know, basically concretized that fear and allowed us to deal with it, in the form of a giant ant or a giant spider or whatever. And some of the movies were really good. Most of them were not. The major radiation movies of the period were them and Tarantula and The Amazing Colossal Man, The Incredible Shrinking Man. I mean, that was the atomic fear era. And those movies were all telling us that there was this atomic power was not quite what it was being sold to us as, and that there was a lot of stuff to think about. Got to remember that in the 60s, being a monster kid meant going to the movies and seeing monster movies that you would not see again for 5 years at least until they went on television. And then once they did go on television, if you didn't catch them, if they were on at 11:30 at night, you had to make sure that you could stay up and watch it because it wasn't going to be on again for months and months and months and months. It's not like what you have today, which is the idea that you can see a movie anytime you want, you can own it, you can you can buy it, you can stream it, you couldn't do any of that stuff then. In Matinee is actually an affectionate parody of those movies, and some of the dialogue, a lot of the dialogue is lifted verbatim from actual 50s movies. But we didn't let it look as tacky as some of those movies actually did. We didn't have our insects crawling off onto photographs of the sky. We actually did we did the effects the way that they appeared to us when we saw them, which was that this is pretty cool. There's a giant spider walking down the street, and we didn't want to know that you could see through it or that they had strings, or we didn't want to see that part. We just wanted to believe that that's what was happening. So the effects in Matinee are actually, A Matinee takes place in 1962 in Key West, Florida, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's a feeling that, it must have been just such a great time to be a kid, and it really was. But there was this constant feeling that the bomb was going to go off. When my partner Mike Fennell and I got the script for the first time, it was a somewhat different kind of a movie. It was about a haunted movie theater where a bunch of people who went to the theater when they were kids come back and reminisce about what happened to them inside the theater as the theater is about to be torn down for a video store. And there's a vampire usher, and there's a matron who's sort of a monster. And it was a cute movie, but we couldn't get it made. Nobody wanted to make it. And when Charlie Haas, who had written Gremlins 2, came on board, we said, we want to revamp this and try to make it into something else. And that's when the idea of making it more realistic came about, while still keeping the idea of what had originally been a horror movie actor who was coming to town. He was now a horror movie director. And it became a much more, quote, serious movie and less of a fantasy.
A series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on the island of Cuba.
The country is on red alert. People are already scared.
Exactly. And what a perfect time to open a new horror movie.
I made this movie because there's a correlation in my life between real fear and movie fear. And in 1962, I was the age of the lead characters in the movie, the high school kids, and I had a brother who was the same age as the little brother in the movie. And I literally thought that the next week wasn't going to happen and that the world was going to end. That kind of thinking has always led me to want to see ritual reenactments of radiation death and giant monsters. And so I sort of combined my affection for both those things into a movie that didn't happen but should have. I wish that a William Castle-like filmmaker had come to my town and run a movie in my theater, even if it was on that fateful weekend. Alas, that part of it didn't happen. But all the rest of it did. It's a pretty accurate representation, I think, of what we all felt and what the world was like at that time.
Now, you mentioned William Castle. He is sort of the inspiration for one of your characters in Matinee.
Yes, the atomic bomb is terrible. But more terrible still are the effects of atomic mutation. Hello, I'm Lawrence Woolsey.
Independent filmmaker Castle was known in the late 50s and through the 60s as the king of B pictures, who always invented new gimmicks to get people to see his films.
For years I have searched for a unique way whereby a motion picture audience can actually decide the climax of a picture. I have found such a way. My latest picture. I'm William Castle, and I feel obligated to warn you about the next attraction you will see at this theater. The picture is The Tingler, which I directed. And for the first time in motion picture history, members of the audience, including you, will actually play a part in the picture. You will feel some of the physical reactions, the shocking sensations experienced by the actors on the screen. I guarantee that The Tingler has more shocks per minute than my last film, The House on Haunted Hill.
My neighborhood theater, they only bothered to wire about 2 or 3 seats in the theater, so I'd get there early and look under all the seats and find the one with the buzzers. I'd sit there and watch Tingler over and over and over, getting my rear end buzzed and realizing there could be such a thing as art in the cinema.
Most of Castle's gimmicks had corny names ending in the letter O, like Emergo for the movie House on Haunted Hill, where a skeleton flew over the audience on a wire.
Your attention, please. During every suspenseful moment of the running of the motion picture Macabre, the life of everyone in the theater will be insured by Lloyd's of London for $1,000 against death by fright. However, even Lloyd's of London will not grant coverage for any person with a known heart condition or for suicide by any member of the audience.
Here is the guarantee in writing. When you go to see my picture Homicidal, you'll get one of these certificates. Then at the climax of Homicidal, there will be a fright break. If you are too frightened to stay to see the rest of the picture, you can present this certificate at the Coward's Corner and get your full admission price refunded. Oh, and please, don't reveal the ending of Homicidal to your friends, or they will kill you. If they don't, I will.
John Goodman stars as B-movie director Lawrence Woolsey.
Wow. Manigator.
Simon Fenton plays Gene, a horror movie buff who gets the chance to meet his lifelong idol, Lawrence Woolsey.
He moves about from town to town. Everywhere he goes, he watches Lawrence Woolsey's movies.
When I asked John Goodman about being in this movie, I figured that I would have to reacquaint him with William Castle and the gimmicks and the whole character that he was playing, and I did not have to. I had a whole reel of trailers I was going to show him. He said, "You don't have to show me that stuff. I know who William Castle is." And he was already, he just inhabited the part. I mean, he just became this character. And I think it's, not to sound full of myself, but I happen to think it's one of the best roles he ever had. We shot Mant first, so that we would have something to project in the theater. So I convinced my friends William Shallert and Kevin McCarthy and Robert Cornthwaite, who was the scientist in The Thing, to not take billing at all, because it'd make just have it be like extended cameos. And we shot it in black and white, and it tried to emulate the style of 50s movies, not necessarily Castle, but just that kind of 1950s studio-bound movie with lots of shadows on the wall.
Mant is an affectionate version of the kind of movies that I grew up with. It's true to the style of the pictures of that period, and the dialogue is perhaps a trifle funnier.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Sorry? You think this is some kind of picnic for me?
The Mant movie was an exceptional experience for me. It was just a riot, just every day, like getting through the lines and keeping a straight face.
I used to go to the movies a lot on Saturday, and it was the place where everybody met. It really was, it was the place to be.
Matinee is one of my most personal movies. I don't know that that necessarily, on its face, makes it better than the other movies, but it does have a certain amount of heart in it, and a lot of affection for movies, which I think has communicated itself over the years to various audiences.